Why is this so low? What I mean by that is not about the price, even though it's still below $3, but it's actually about the average transaction fee of the internet computer over the last 30 days. It was actually so low to the point that the average was approximately 600 thousandths of a dollar. So basically 0 point, and then we have 4 zeros and then 6 after. Like, that's how low it is, which I find quite ridiculous actually in the grand scheme of things. That's how low that was. This puts it on par with the likes of a Sui, with the likes of a Stellar, which means that it's more competitive. It showcases that the gas fees are not unsustainable. And also on top of that, this highlights that if an enterprise wants to adopt this, it's more built for that just because the transaction fees are not through the roof, right? The gas fees are not ridiculous, unlike some other places out there. Even though I am not telling anyone to do anything, and even though nothing I say is financial advice, we have to think about this. Enterprises, when they want to adopt a certain technology, and especially when it comes to this space in terms of blockchain technology, they want something that's a little bit more predictable in terms of the gas fees. Because could you imagine, some of these enterprises are doing thousands upon thousands of actions per day. They want something that's a little bit more predictable, right? They don't want one transaction suddenly having so much gas fees and then the other one is like so low and then it's just unpredictable, right? They want something that's a little bit more consistent, and even if it is slightly varied from transaction to transaction, they want something that's just low overall. And the internet computer kind of showcases that to a certain extent, as evidently seen according to ChainSpect, in which case over the past 30 days, the gas fees was one of the lowest when it comes to this space, which is quite legendary. I mean, if a project, right, for a certain metric or statistic is able to be mentioned in the same sense as like a Sui or like a Stellar, that showcases something, in my opinion, fundamentally. And the internet computer just kind of showcased that to a certain extent through that recent statistic. People like to say, well, it's pointless and all this because who's really going to use it? Not that many people are using this. Who cares about the gas fees? I could get that argument, but we have to think about this. Enterprises care about this, and also I think the retail market does care about this. Now, of course, they also really care about popularity and good vibes and also the cool factor. Totally understandable. But the internet computer has arguably very low gas fees, which I think makes it so that it's just a lot more competitive. And this is what I like about it, because it was built from the ground up with this type of stuff taken into consideration. So long story short, why are the gas fees so low when it comes to the internet computer? I think simply put, it was just designed that way since the beginning. And I think arguably having low gas fees is going to make it more developer friendly, in a sense where some developers out there, when they're just starting off, when they just kind of want to test things out, they don't want a place that's really expensive or has really high gas fees because it's not conducive, right? Some of these developers are just trying stuff out. They don't really know if they want to commit to that place or not yet. They want to kind of test it out. So again, something like the internet computer, I think, is going to become automatically a little bit more developer friendly just because the gas fees are not ridiculous. Furthermore, I think this kind of showcases how it's very scalable, because some other places out there, because the gas fees are so ridiculous, mass scale adoption just doesn't really make sense. Because if there's mass scale adoption with a lot of users and the gas fees are not predictable, it's very like varied like that, it can be really high, it can be really low, it can be somewhere like in between that. Again, sometimes for mass scale enterprise adoption, having gas fees that are completely just out of whack like that, it's sometimes not a good thing. So this is what I like, again, about the internet computer in terms of the gas fees. This is an aspect that sometimes people don't really think of in regards to the internet computer, but I think it's something actually pretty crucial for its longevity, at least in terms of, its fundamentals, right? But even besides that point, the internet computer has recovered around almost 14% in the past 30 days. Yes, I get it. It's still below $2.50. So it's really not still that good yet. I mean, we have to consider this. In the past year, this went down almost 55%. So it's not like this is doing anything that amazing or anything like that as of right now. But need I remind people, just a year ago, like 365 days ago, basically, the internet computer was at around $5.50. We're over 2 times away from that, which I know people like to say, well, that's really bad though, if it could just go back there. Is it though? Bitcoin going back to its peak last year is not. a 2x movement from right now. It just isn't. Now, we take a look at it. The intercomputer going to $5.50, that's nothing groundbreaking. That's like considered quite bad, actually. And even if I think about it as well, in November of last year, this was at around $9, right? We're almost 4 times away from that. And the thing is, $9 wasn't even that good, let alone $5.50. So when I take a look at, in the case of the intercomputer, it's actually so low compared to points in which it was already quite low anyways. So it showcases that returning back to those points, it already feels a little bit kind of very interesting to me, even though it wouldn't be breaking any sort of records. And in the case of the intercomputer, just going back to like $5.50, $9 or whatever, from right now, the movement back there already feels like somewhat altcoin season vibes, but it wouldn't be. But just because it's so low right now, going back to like $5.50, going back to like around $9, it already feels like an upgrade, if that kind of makes sense. Even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but that's just what I realized. However, I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very fantastic day.